Today we were originally scheduled to have two upholstery-style tech sessions today. We're going to have Cal recover the seat, put new seat bunds in it, and then I also had a local professional trim guy who was going to put a headliner in my sedan. He called me this morning and said he tried to glue something yesterday, and with this humidity, his glue is just not sticking. He wasn't comfortable spending all the time and screwing up a perfectly good headliner just to have to do it again. So we're just going to have the one tech session for you here today. Cal says he knows what he's doing, so I'll let Cal take over.
Well, Cliff knows on section 2 is wait for dry day.
Wait for the humidity to drop just a little, or else plan on doing it again.
Our upholstery kits come with instructions. I know what you're going to do with them, but you know, read them anyway. We're not going to read them today. Since I wrote it with the help of my father, I'm actually not the upholstery expert. My dad was still alive. He's the one that you'd want to do it for. For an amateur, he did 8 sets of upholstery for me. I've got 7 sets still sitting in my basement waiting for me to get the cars done, but he's had my upholstery done for 6 or 7 years. So, the upholstery today, going to try to get you to understand how we do the bottom of the bucket seat. And one of the first things that people run into and don't know how to tackle is the chrome button. The first thing they do is grab their screwdriver, and that's the worst thing because you're gonna bend that. There may very well be other ways of doing it, but the only real way we've come up with, I think with these tables, the best way that we've come up with, you can't save the things, and so usually if you grab them with vice grips, twist them a little bit, you'll get them off, and you don't end up hurting your chrome trim. That came off a little easy. I did not pre-loosen that.
I can attest to that.
So does that come in his kit then? Or you have to buy that?
You reuse the old guy.
No,
we got new
you really
ones.
can't.
Yeah.
You maybe can, but you really can't.
The other thing is, people want to tackle this, and the first thing they want to do is start prying on it. Right up in this area, there's a little pin right up in here, and you want to get that pin out first. And we'll put it over here so we don't lose it. Everybody sees where it is. It's sitting there right now.
Just a straight pin?
It's like a brad. It's kind of, it just goes in and it flares out.
So you can pop it with the header.
Yeah.
Cal, where was that pin? I didn't see the pin.
There's a hole right here, and you look up underneath, and that's just pushed up in there, and it just pops right out. Then you can get this off, so there's no reason to pry on it. Now we end up with a, I don't know what you call it. This one you can pry on, but watch out because it tends to want to fly off.
That line.
And we sell new ones. Wow, your seat's tight. Let's put it back up. Oh, we got it. And you'll see there's, right where that pivots, there's some washers. You can either save them or we have replacement ones. At this point, most people with the digital cameras have finally gotten to the point where they, although it looks awful simple, and if you're lucky you got your other one and you're doing just one at a time, I still take pictures. When I do a seat like this, I figure on a minimum of 50 pictures. Okay, if you've never done it before, and if you're lucky enough to be taking off an original one, you want to know where they've done it. And I can tell you right now, this is an original one, and this varies from my 65 that I did a few months ago, in that they've got a clip back here. Mine had both clips up here. So there you've got a case of different people on the assembly line doing it slightly differently. And I'll take a quick picture of this.
Scott Corvair Group. I see we have a little mousy house too in there.
So you can't have too many pictures, okay? Even though you may have just taken it off 20 minutes ago, I guarantee there's going to be something that you're going to get to that you're going to say, well, did this hog ring onto here, or did this hog ring onto here? I've gotten to the point that quite often I'll even take a very slow video pan, because as you're panning around there, you'll get different angles that you can look at it. May not be quite as critical on a bucket seat as some mechanical things, but it's still a good idea. Our covers are as close as you can get to the original. So everything that was done on the original, if you've got an original, you'll be able to repeat with our covers. Now, this is the fun part. Here you go, it's your thing. We'll start snapping some of these clips off.
Is there any particular order that you go in?
There's no particular order on removing these. And I also usually want to try to cut them in the middle. And I usually cover them a little bit with my hand if you're strong enough to clip them.
Those are the hog rings?
It's a hog ring, yep, that's been just, and there's
Thank
actually,
goodness they're not rusty.
there's actually little places. This is pretty simple because there's all these little raised places that you're supposed to put the hog ring back in. Also, if you've got other good cars, we're not going to hit his, obviously. But if you're doing it in your garage next to other cars, watch out because these things go flying.
It has a California plate in front. The car actually did come from California, so it's actually a real thing. So, I don't know if anybody here has ever bought a car from California or out west, but boy, I tell you, the bolts underneath it, one little crack of the wrench, you can take them off with your fingers.
I've heard that about Arizona
You
cars.
buy a Michigan car,
Not so. Not so.
you gotta soak everything.
And then they still break.
The hog rings, sometimes you can just take them out with your fingers. Sometimes you just grab them with your diagonal cutters and just kind of flip them around and they'll come out.
Diagonal cutters, you got long leverage, long handles. Nice little slits. Hard to cut.
As long as it's off from the seat, you don't really hear too much.
Horn works.
It turns the wheel.
Horn works where he likes.
Figure out what that button does here. Oh,
Now there's also, right under here, this Osnaburg material comes up and it gets clipped onto the springs here. And this one is in a slightly different place than where mine was, so I'm going to snap another quick picture of it. For the most part, it's probably going to vary a little bit depending on the cover and how you get the seat bun on and everything else. But it's still a good idea to have an idea of where originally the factory clipped them.
East Coast idea.
watching is where did the excess material go? Because if you just flop this over, you're going to end up with this material out here in your track, and every time you adjust your seat, it's going to push against this. So if you're lucky enough again to have a seat that was done at the factory, most of the time the guys took the time to tuck them under where they belong. Not always. So when you're putting it back together, you may have to think a little bit, well geez, if that's right like that, every time I adjust my seat it's going to hit it, what can I do with it? Just tuck it right inside there like they did at the factory. So you would hope at this point you've done all your hog rings. You're not even halfway yet. Now, we do need to save this. Normally I would suggest that you sand it or glass bead it a little bit. They're always rusty. They didn't put anything on them.
Where did that just come out?
That just came out of this piece here. And you'll see that the rust is eaten right through where it was supposed to be, so it was just barely holding it anymore. But that would pull it around like this and smooth out the back side of the seat. We want to take a good look at how it looked. If you look here, this is a pretty good seat from GM. This seam here lines right up with this seam. This seam is off a little bit. We find originals vary all over the place. We try to keep it, when we sew it, a little bit closer than they did so that this seam comes right down and goes right down. That's its stitched seam. It really doesn't matter that much because GM didn't care about it. The other thing you'll notice, this seat is in good shape actually, and a couple of people even commented, well, why is he bothering to do it? But there's like nothing here. It's just... But the other thing I like to look at when I see a good original, we've got this rolling around and going down into here. We've got this part of it rolling and coming down into here. So it's not just flat right across. It'd be kind of a dead-looking seat. So this one's got roll, roll, and this rolls off slightly on the side down to here. He got the seat bumpers off, which would be pretty obvious. The next thing is, okay, can we get this to come off? Now, I'll tell you, this is pretty supple. The last 65 of mine that I did, I had to take scissors here and here because two of us couldn't even start to pull this to get it off the bottom. My car has been in storage since 1973 in a dehumidified, nice heated garage, and it's still, I mean, it had shrunk up that bad. So don't be afraid. I mean, don't just cut it every which way, but it doesn't hurt to put some cuts in it because you're not going to use it again. A lot of people look at it and say, well, geez, I don't want to cut it up. How am I going to get it apart? It's not going to matter unless you're saving it for a museum and you want to put an old original seat cover in the museum. So don't worry about that.
I'm going to sell it on eBay.
An auction.
So now we can pull the back part of the seat out, and you'll notice there's a piece of cardboard. Okay, that's necessary to keep the vinyl from hitting the various sections of metal back here. Again, you want to see, okay, how does that tuck in there? Nothing actually holds it. And this, I think, is the section that probably throws off people the most, is right in here. You've got two things happening in here. You've got the back of the seat coming down, and that's also where the seat bun is attached. So they did basically two attachments here at the same time. The back part of the seat bun to pull that back, and the seat to pull the seat as far back as they could. So that means that we've got more hog rings. And this looks pretty similar to the way mine was done. I'll still take one more picture.